welcome to the Empowering Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Dwyer, and again, I have the great Candace Thompson with me, and we're going to talk all about her today. I know we did that kind of previously, and based upon some amazing response that we both received from that podcast, we felt the need to come back together and just kind of do this on the regular. So you guys are going to see like regular conversation between Candace and myself. I know I mentioned it jokingly, but seriously, I just hope she was taking me seriously, but she did. So thank you, Candace, for taking me seriously, and welcome back. It is an honor to have you back.
Awesome. It is definitely a pleasure to be here. I enjoyed our time last time, and as you said, got amazing feedback. So I'm here, and I'm ready for us to just chit chat and chop it up.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So let's chop it up. So when we last talked, you kind of shared some of your skills and talents with us, and we was literally floored by that information, right? But so we got the canvases with Candace, the tongue twister I keep talking about, right? It's still hard for me to do. I don't know why, but it does flow. It is very unique, and I love it. But I want to talk about Candace, the author. Can we do that for a minute? Yeah. So you have how many books out right now?
So right now, I currently have one published, and I have one that is releasing towards the end of June.
Nice. So I'm looking for both copies, by the way. Just throwing that out there in the atmosphere again. I gave her a hard time in the beginning, but I wouldn't let her give herself a hard time. So that was the goal. Let's talk about the first book. So you mentioned the first book, and the name of that book is what again?
That's Impress Yourself.
Impress Yourself. Such a wonderful topic. Yeah, it's your baby. I love it. I'm glad you said that because I want to know the inspiration behind the baby.
Yes, that was, So I wrote this book and published it in 2019. Now, fun fact, I wrote this book in 58 days. And it was one of those things, it was just ready to be birthed, if you will. It didn't take a lot to pull it out of me. It was week by week. I just wrote a chapter every single week. But to kind of go back to where that all came from, I told you guys before, as far as me being an artist, as a kid, doodling, drawing, stuff like that. But as a writer, as a kid, I used to create these little short stories that I would staple together with like construction paper and have like all my little books like around the house and stuff. And so I've always been a writer. And in 2019, I was working in IT. And at that point in time, I was traveling for work. And so on my weekends, I'd come back to Columbia and just kind of hang out. But I'm like a workshop junkie. So I love workshops. I'm total nerd alert. But I went looking for something to do that weekend, and I saw a book writing workshop, and the title of it was that you can write a book in 90 days. And so that was with author coach Sneeka Sims. And I was just like, a book in 90 days? Because when you think of it, it's like, people take years to write, these books and their life memoirs and stuff like that. And I didn't have a concept for a book necessarily at that point, but I went to the workshop, and as we were sitting there, so this was like the weekend before Memorial Day, and she goes, by Labor Day, you could be a published author. And I was like, my birthday's in September. I'm a Virgo. Now, as a Virgo, you give me a challenge. You tell me I can write something in 90 days. And I'm like, watch me. Let's see how this works. And so, honestly, my goal when I initially wrote this book was really just kind of a therapeutic thing for me. And as a birthday present to myself, I was turning 35 that year. And I said, for my 35th birthday, I just want to be known as a published author. That was it. That was the end of it.
Wow.
We've sold over 3,000 copies of it now. So pretty exciting being a published author at this point.
Yeah.
And that was how it started.
That's awesome. See, I love the simplicity of that story, because I think a lot of people who want to become authors, they think, well, I have to have something to say, and it has to be this great elaborate story that I need to tell. And for you, you was like, I just want to be an author. I want to do it by my 35th birthday. Mm-hmm. And I love the simplicity behind that, because if anyone who is listening hears that, it tells them, say, you know what, you can do it as well. And I think sometimes the fear behind not knowing if what I have to say is going to be accepted, whether it's going to reach 1 million copies. Who cares about the 1 million copies? Just write the book. Just get it out there already. And so I love the story, because for me, that I take heed to that. Because let me tell you about this guy. Okay. This guy who actually has gone to school, and the worst thing I could have done is pursue a master's degree, because guess what they make you do? They make you write all the time. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, for a person who don't like writing, and here's the issue: I'm actually pretty good at writing. I just don't like doing it.
Mm.
I think it's a me thing. It's
Mhm.
not a skill thing for me.
Mhm.
I just have to unfix in my mind that I don't like doing it and say, you know what? Why don't you write more? Like, write the things that you want to write. And I think, so this is kind of giving other people permission. Write the things that you want to write, not the things that you're forced to write. So for me, I guess I don't like writing because I'm being forced to write about a topic that the curriculum is about. On the other side of it, if I was to write about things that bring me joy, then I may find joy in writing. And so I think I may be kind of, tapping into your story before we get there, because the title of your book is called Impress Yourself.
Mhm.
Now, you're not going to tell me that you wrote this book on a whim with a title so powerful that it was just like, here you go, there it is. I'm an author now. So tell me about that.
Well, I tell you, everything is a seed at some point, right? So I used to loosely blog for a while. And so at a time in my life, I was in my early 30s and I was like, just life happened and I was forced to move back with my parents, basically lost everything. And I started this like online journal that I never published anywhere. I never shared it with anybody, but it was a matter of me just being able to kind of get thoughts out without them just rolling around in my head. And so at that point, it's kind of where Impress Yourself came from, because I used to hashtag Impress Yourself at the end of those journal prompts. And it was basically me just kind of writing to like future me, like, hey girl, you going through this today, but it will not be this hard one day. One day these things will happen, or, you get through this and, you'll get over this hurdle. And so I was kind of always talking to myself over the course of like about a year or so. And what I did was, when I came up with the book, initially, the thought process was I was going to write 2 books. I got really ambitious in this 90 days. I was going to write 2 books. I was going to go from 0 to 2.
Right.
And the goal was I was going to write like this self-help like workbook that went along with a fiction story of a girl in her 30s who was gifted the workbook, and kind of go through the story of what she did with the workbook and how she was able to kind of transform her life.
Yeah.
That was the initial thought. And then that got very ambitious. And I was like, let's just kind of go with the other one. So I kind of mixed the two, where in the book I give real life accounts. So we call them story times in the book. And so I was doing story time before TikTok was doing story time. Let's just put that out there.
So we're going to give her credit for TikTok right now. Just make sure y'all get that.
So I give these stories, but in the story, it's like the lesson that I learned and how you can apply that to your own life. I feel like the title came from most of the time we spend, I know I did, spent so much of my life doing things for other people. That was my motivation for a lot of stuff. Is, oh, my parents will be proud, or my friends will be proud, or the community will be proud. It was doing it for those reasons.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't happy. It's not that I wasn't doing well. It's not that things weren't succeeding. It's not that things weren't happening. But internally, I was crumbling. And so I was like, I have to start waking up, looking in the mirror, which the cover of the book is a mirror. I have to start waking up, looking in the mirror, and impressing me. And as long as I can go to bed every night saying, hey, you know what? Girl, you did that today. That's what it's all about. So that's what I hope people get from the book, is you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, I did that today and I did it for me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I and like, for me, I really love the title. I mean, I really do, because I think if we all apply ourselves, we have the ability to be impressed with the outcome of what we produce. I think a lot of times, we've all heard the saying, we're our own worst critic, right? We've said that so many years. Well, why can't I be my biggest fan as well? And I think if we change that narrative to being my biggest fan, then I'll root for me in route to accomplishing goals. And I think that just kind of changes the narrative. So I love the title of this book, and I am anxious to read it. Another plug, by the way. I am anxious to read it.
I'm putting that out today. As soon as we're done, I'm going through mailbox.
Yes, ma'am. But I'm just anxious to read it, because I too want to be able to share that with the world. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really what we should be doing. Part of impressing ourselves is kind of like, how can I say it? It's like we impress upon others the opportunity, or give them permissions to go beyond their current thought, right? And then when you do that, you're literally amazed with what you can do. And once you realize what you can do, then you take the limitations off. So impressing yourself, to me, without even reading it yet, is all about taking the limitations off. Now, I want to go deeper into that title
Hmm.
because I want to know what it is about this title that manifested itself in your life. Like, what is it about this? Like, going back to this book, what was it about it that impressed you?
Even if you think about the concept of, you told me I can write and publish a book in 90 days, and I did it in 58. Pretty
Impressive.
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 And again, for me, because the goal was already set. So technically, as long as I did it in 90 days, I did what was set forth before me. And so now, again, call this being a Virgo if you want to. Now it was, well, can I do it faster? You know, it's like when you're driving and you get in the car and the GPS says you'll be there in an hour and 23 minutes, and you're like, for real? I'm doing an hour and 20. Even just shaving off a couple
Yeah.
of seconds or a couple of minutes. But I think internally, most of us are competitive by nature.
Yeah.
But we spend so much time competing against other people when you realize that the only competitor you should ever have is you.
Mm.
I strive every single day to be 1 degree, 1%, just a slight millimeter better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
That is my strive every single day. And as long as I can do that, I know I will always get to whatever goals that I set.
I love it.
And that's one of the chapters. We talk about goals. And so even when you were talking earlier about writing, and you know, you're writing and you're forced to write. Like I said, I have a degree in psychology. Plenty of writing. That's pretty much all we did was write, write. Prior to that, I was pursuing my degree in print journalism. So again, nothing but writing. When I was in my younger years, I truly, I thought I was going to be Khadijah James from Living Single. I wanted to have my own magazine.
Right.
And so writing is just all I've ever done. But again, because it's always been for school. And so I've never really gotten to the point where I was writing for pleasure, but I do like to journal, but nothing that I thought anybody would want to read per se. Like, why would anybody want to read what I have to say? But when you put that M word in, that mandatory word.
Yeah. It's painful.
It's my least favorite word.
Yeah.
I will do just about anything until you say it's mandatory. Now I don't want to, just because you told me I have to.
Absolutely.
But even journaling, I feel like for most people that is a great practice to start with, because you never realize, even just what you're writing about from a journaling perspective could either turn into, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, could turn into a story, because you are, again, just writing to kind of empty your mind. I think that's a great practice. It's something I still do, is I write to empty my mind before I go to bed. Get all the little jumbles out, everything that's just kind of running around in there. How many of us lay down at night and you say, oh, when I get up tomorrow, I got to do this, I got to do this. You already think about tomorrow. You haven't even finished today. So write those things out. And again, some of those things could easily turn into, you could take one sentence and have that transform into an entire chapter, which happened many times while I was writing this book.
Yeah.
Having a coach made a huge difference, because I had somebody to physically talk it out with. But one of the things that she told me is, you don't write just to write. You do write with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was writing, I can remember starting on chapter 1, sitting in my living room on my couch, feet kicked up, and I created like this avatar, like basically this woman that I was speaking to, and having this conversation with her through this book. Like, do you need to know this information? Is this important for you to know in this book?
Yeah.
And so I've been told by, reviewers and things like that, that the book is very conversational, because that's exactly how I wrote it. I wrote it as if I'm having a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
So those of you who are hearing my voice, and those of you who do purchase the book, I have also been told that you can literally hear me in this book as you're reading along. It's my voice, it's my tone. And so I think that's one of the things that I love about this book, is that it's able to really connect with people on like a personal level, not just a high level self-help, let me tell you what you need to do to change your life.
Right. See, I like that. I like that. Excuse me. I so love that, because what I'm hearing is that it is an extension of you. It's not like something that is academia approved or anything of that nature. It doesn't fall outside the realm of what is actually talked about in the academic world, but it is literally an extension of your voice. And I love writing with a purpose. So I'm looking at your shelves back there, and it kind of brings into my mind, I hate organizing. I do. And I'm going to some place, just flow with me for a second. I hate organizing, but here's the thing. I'm actually pretty good at organizing when I put my mind to it. So if you want me to look at your resume, I can QC it to the point that you will get a job. Well, you'll make it to the interview. I can't guarantee you the job, but you'll make it to the interview. But if you want me to write your resume, I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
I'm just not that guy. I say all that to say, journaling, I like the idea of journaling with a purpose, but if you have not discovered the purpose of your journaling, journal something. Just write whatever comes to mind, because subconsciously you will create the story. Then when you go back and look at it, something is going to click. That something clicked, and you can organize it. This is very nice looking at her bookshelf. You can organize it as such to where it creates the story for you, but it was all found in your thoughts. I like the idea of thinking about what tomorrow's going to be as you're laying down at night before you go to sleep. But that's not going to happen if your face is stuck in your cell phone. I've talked about that so many different times. I think our cell phones and all other types of media takes away from your creative processes. Sometimes you can get a lot of great insight from them if that's what you're looking for. But if I'm just on there looking for the latest and the greatest gossip, what Candace got going on today or whatever, it probably won't get a lot of creativity. However, if I'm going looking for the creativity of Candace and the creativity of whoever else I'm looking at, then I can get some ideas from them based upon what they're currently doing. That's an intentional way of doing something. But we got to separate ourselves from these things so that we can allow this thing to work. It's be intentional about this. Be intentional about thinking. My mentor, John, John Maxwell, he likes to say that we need to take time so that we can think. So set aside whatever works for you, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's 30 minutes. When you get good at it, it'll be a whole hour to where you shut off everything around you and sit there and just think about something specific. And you'll be amazed at what actually happens. So I love that idea because I started doing that. I haven't gotten to an hour yet. I'm like maybe 15 minutes and I start thinking about what I need to do. And it always works that way. I don't know why. Anything longer than 30 minutes, I'm going to sleep. I'm working on me, right? I'm just being honest though. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that's important too, though. And even what you said, I think some of us almost demotivate ourselves with the idea of, oh, I have to do it for an hour. Okay, well, you haven't made it to an hour, so why are you setting such this? And I talk about this in one of the chapters.
Yeah.
Why are you setting such a lofty goal when you haven't achieved the smaller portion of it? So do the 5 minutes.
Yep.
And allow yourself to be proud of yourself for the 5 minutes. Don't diminish that percentage because you think it's only 5 minutes. And I think one of the biggest words that we use that demotivates ourselves in anything we do is we say only before.
I like
what
it.
That word does is it minimizes things.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only 5 minutes. Right? But it's 5 more minutes than yesterday.
Right.
Yesterday was 0 minutes.
Yeah.
So now you can kind of transform yourself. If you take that word only out, it completely transforms what you do. So one of the things I talk about is an upward spiral. A lot of us have spent different revolutions on a downward spiral in many, many different ways. But how often have we been talked to or talked about, with other people as far as an upward spiral? Like, how do you go back the other direction?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think most of us think of things as steps. And so even in the example you just gave of, I haven't gotten to an hour, but you're making these revolutions of, hey, it was 5 minutes and now it's 15 minutes. And, I'm getting up to the point where I can do 30 minutes. And you know what? Maybe 30 minutes is your threshold.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If you go to sleep at 31 minutes, just keep it at 30.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to be most productive anyway.
Yeah.
Why continue to push ourselves into something that isn't really going to make us productive? Maybe you do 2 separate 30 minutes.
Right.
And now you still get the hour in a 24-hour time frame.
Absolutely.
Nobody said it had to be an hour all the time.
Absolutely.
And so writing's the same way. And I think I'd always consider, people they just sit and they dedicate, they don't do anything, but they write. There are some people who do that. People who, what I would consider like, authors for a living per se, where they write series and they produce multiple books, within a year. For me, it was to make sure I spent dedicated time. In that same way, it was, all right, I'm going to take 30 minutes today because I was still working at the time. I was in the middle of stand-up training. I'm traveling, so I had a lot going on. At that point, I was still running campuses with Candace. We were about almost 2.5 years in. I'm leading up to my birthday now. It's summertime. Like, you got all these things going on. And I'm trying to write a book at the same time. So it was making sure I made dedicated time.
Yeah.
And so spending that time, like when I was in hotels, it was, I made sure I had my notebook, whether I had just an idea.
Yeah.
I may not be physically writing tonight. Maybe tonight is I'm just kind of brainstorming or webbing out some ideas. Hey, what do I want to talk about in this chapter? Let me brainstorm or web that out. I got a couple of bullet points here. How do I expand those?
Yeah.
And like I said, having a coach made a big difference because she was able to help me hone in on some of those. Hey, this looks great, but like as far as content, she's like, you talked about this, but then you trailed off, which I can have a tendency to do. There's a lot of stuff going on up there, right? So I want to tell you all the things all the time. But she'd be able to kind of help me focus it and say, hey, we talked about this. You gave us one point, but then you kind of left that point off. So let's go back to that, expand that out more. Never giving me the words to say.
Right.
But she would ask one question. And this question to this day, anytime I feel like I'm stuck with anything, I still go back to this. Tamika, if you're watching this, you already know. Who told you that? You know how often we stop ourselves from progressing in so many ways because we believe we're not able, allowed, or should do something based on something no one has ever actually said to us.
Or don't have the skill. I don't want to leave that out as well. Or don't have the skill to do it.
Right. No one's ever, who told you that?
Yeah.
I remember someone, I can't put this in here. Why? Who told you that?
Right.
Well, and I couldn't answer it. And those were some of the most freeing moments in my writing process. And I think that was something more than anything that helped me transform just things even in just my regular life.
Yeah.
And now I question whenever I have a limiting belief or a moment of, I don't know if I should. Well, who told you that?
Right.
So I passed that along to you guys. Now I paid for it, so I'm gonna give it to y'all for free. Okay.
I love it.
Who told you that?
I love
Think
it.
about that the next time you have a limiting belief.
I love it. Tamika, you're awesome, by the way. I love the fact that you imposed that question because that's a great question to ask. We tend to use a concept, to build this airplane while in flight. That question is so powerful because it makes you think into where did I get that thought from? Like when did I decide that I can't do this? When did I decide that this wasn't for me or something of that nature? And what I found is just an extension of control because we don't know the step process that's going to get me from start to finish.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer for the next step. Then what I do is I prevent myself from moving forward. But what we need to understand is that we need to trust in what we don't know. And that's very difficult for us to do. Trust the fact that you will figure it out. Figuring it out is part of the growth process.
Yes.
So if I release my tendency to be, how can I say it, immobilized because I don't know what's around the corner, so I refuse to go up to the corner just so I can understand what's next, then I will never understand what's on the other side of what we tend to call our comfort zone. So we have to continuously, and I think we talked about this previously, we have to be intentional about recreating our comfort zone. In fact, that should be a lifestyle, moving from comfort zone to comfort zone to comfort zone. And when we do that, what we find is we'll put ourselves in your phrase, an upward spiral of continuous growth, because you will figure it out. I guarantee it. You're going to figure out something. You're going to not do it the way that you thought you were going to do it, and you're going to learn in the process, or you're going to do it beyond what you thought you could do it. Like you said, I'm going to be an author in 90 days. Well, I did it in 58. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. So I think that's an amazing concept. Again, thank you, Tamika, because I think you're awesome just by imposing that question. Because it's the perfect question to ask. And for, like you said, for anybody who's listening, make that question a part of your lifestyle. Like I can't stress that enough. Make that question a part of your lifestyle. When you get to the point where confusion starts setting in and you just get, I don't want to say lazy, right? But it feels lazy because you're not doing nothing. Like in my mind, I can be doing something, but it's something I'm not doing. Right. And then you start making up excuses and all that other stuff. Just kind of think about what it is that's preventing you, and then ask yourself, who told you that? Like who prevented you from doing that? Who put that in your mind and you believe that limiting thought in
That
yourself.
is the belief part. That's the key. Like, and to piggyback off what you just said, we've survived our hardest days. You know, you talked about being afraid and, going up to that corner, what's around the corner, and, moving through these different comfort zones. We've survived all the hardest stuff. So a lot of us create, and we talked about this the last time we talked with this anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
We've created these realities that are like, oh, well, I don't know what's going to happen, or what if this doesn't happen? Well, what if it does? Think about that. What if it does? Well, if you didn't write a book already, well, you haven't written a book. So the worst that can happen is you write the book now.
Right.
That's the worst that can happen, because you already haven't written it. So you already know what the outcome of not having it is. And I think that's the craziest concept, because most of us are afraid, well, what if I lose this? You already don't have it.
Right.
So nothing would change technically.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to grow through some things as you make the attempt towards that goal. And you're saying if you don't reach the goal, well, you're already at that point. You haven't reached the goal yet.
Right.
So the worst that can happen is success. And you know what they say about success, though? The worst part about success is a little bit of it. Because sometimes we stop at that point because we've reached a little bit of success. Now we're afraid to lose that instead of continuing to press forward.
Yeah.
Even if you lose that aspect, this is just my opinion, even if you lose that aspect, you just go back to baseline.
Yeah.
But you already know what baseline feels like. It
Absolutely.
may not be a great space, it may not be a comfortable space, but at least you already know what it feels like.
Right. See, you brought success into this conversation, right? And this is the other piece I want to add to it in conjunction with everything that you said, which I think is phenomenal, by the way. We view success as an outcome. But I think Earl Nightingale kind of gave the best definition of success that I've ever seen. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy idea. So when we view it as an outcome, we're not even realize our internalized growth, the development of thoughts, the development of seeing yourself being what you believe success is. Like, what does it look like once you get to the mountaintop? You know what I'm saying? What are you doing? Like, how are you feeling? Those things. That's a progressive idea of realizing, not the outcome. Oh, people are going to praise me and people are going to say, great job. No, forget what people say. What do you say? How do you feel? So that progressive realization now is internalized, it's emotionalized, and that's the thing that propels you forward. So I love the fact that you brought success in, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring Earl Nightingale into this conversation, because that's my favorite definition.
Hey, that's my dude too. Love Earl. The Strangest Secret. If you guys have not listened to that.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It'll make your skin crawl, I promise. Listen, I don't want to linger on too long, but I do want to get to the other side of this, right? So you wrote Impress Yourself, right? How did it feel once you got it out your hands? And I gotta say it that once you got it out your hands, and she knows what I mean when I say that. How did it feel once you got it out your hands?
That was the most therapeutic process I'd ever been through. It was a completion, as we were kind of just talking about this level of success, to watch it go from 0 pages, 0 characters on a computer screen, to then watching it on that same computer screen get formatted into over 140 pages of all my organic words, and know it was my truth. That had to be one of the most therapeutic things. No amount of years in therapy, no amount of years of conversations with friends, family, or otherwise could top the feeling, whether no one ever purchased that book or not. My thing was done. What I set out to do was complete. And so, just as you said, that idea of success, to me, it's never being tied to the result, but the actions that lead up to it.
Yeah. So I need everybody to understand. So I did not prep her with any questions before this conversation, but she literally went into the second portion of that question, because you said without anybody making any purchases. And I was just about to ask you, so you mean to tell me you experienced that without anybody ever purchasing the book. So you were already thinking ahead for me, and I thank you for that. But it just shows how we're connected in this space.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of conversation of this magnitude, because there's no doubt in my mind that this conversation is going to help somebody. She felt like it was a release, if I can use that word. She felt a release of just getting it out of her hands. Nobody ever purchased it yet.
Right.
Just got it. Now, in your mind, how many people did you want to buy your book? I got to ask. I'm sorry.
In my mind, it was a strong 20.
20?
It
That's
was a
it?
strong 20.
Oh, my God.
Truthfully, when I wrote it, the idea, I really just wanted to have my own book on my shelf for my 35th birthday.
Wow.
That was literally it. We used my birthday party. So I released the book on September 21st of 2019. So that was on my actual birthday. So my birthday party was my book signing. We had about 50 people at the book signing. So it far surpassed the 20 that I anticipated. I really thought it was going to be my mom, my dad, my sister, my close circle of friends, and my grandma. That was it. Just like my immediate friends and family, I thought that was who was going to buy it. And to hear the perspective, it's gone through book clubs. We've had discussions. People online have wrote reviews. People I've never met a day in my life have written reviews, up on Amazon, on Goodreads, and to read their reactions.
Yeah.
To know that just my personal story, my personal journey assisted someone else in theirs, that we have no ties, no connections, no nothing.
Yeah.
That was icing. The cake for me was, like I said, just writing it and just being able to have it and say it was done.
Yeah.
And so being able to connect with people in this kind of way, I talked before about impact has always been my major thing.
Yeah.
That is what I want to do in this world. I want to leave an impact, my footprint somehow, somewhere. And for those of you who are looking for and seeking that same type of fulfillment, I really do feel like as an author, you are able to, because your print work lives forever. It's going to far surpass you, which is the same thing of artwork, things like that. These things that you create and that you put out into the world, they far surpass you. Yes, while we're doing this podcast, we can have this video. At some point, somebody could erase all servers and they disappear.
Absolutely.
But if we were to transcribe this and put this into a written book form, it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
It will always live somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that, to me, especially as someone who has no children, things like that, this is my legacy, and this is how I feel like I leave the world. And I remember the moment that I got my author copy in my hand. I feel like I'm gonna get a little choked up just thinking about it.
Take your time. You're fine.
It's been like 3 years. Like, I feel like I still shouldn't be this emotional about it, but it's the moment I got that author copy in my hand, knowing the amount of time that I had spent, knowing what I had to go through prior to even being able to write the book. Because I had experienced these life things to be able to write about these life things.
Yeah.
And to see this 6x9 book in my hand with a cover that I drew with all words that I wrote was it was one of the most amazing. Amazing is the only way that I can describe it.
Yeah.
It's such a feeling that I did this. Like, I guess that's probably how like a parent looks at their kid when they have a baby, I'm sure. But it really was just like this, wow, like I wrote this thing and here it is in my hands right now. Wow. This is cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You did it again, by the way. Soon I was going to relate that to childbirth, but I mean you took the words right out of my mouth. So no, that's perfect. That is so good. And again, I'm just going to say it now. Here's what the plan is, and I want everybody to grasp this. Candace and myself, we're going to mastermind her book. You need to get your copy now, because when we start talking in detail, specifics, like we're not just going to talk the written word, we're going to talk the idea of the word, the spirit of the word. Like you're going to experience the labor that she went through as when she went through writing all of these chapters. So you might want to get your copy now, have it on standby. That way, when we go through it, it can be revealed to you at the level of the author. And I think that's the key. Sure, anybody can read a book and you can get your idea based upon what you read, based upon your level of awareness. But what about the awareness of the author at the time of conception? That's what you have to understand. So get your book now so that once we start masterminding this book, it comes alive for you in your life. So That being said, I don't really think I need to just dwell anymore. I just allow them to get their copies so that they can dive into it, go through, highlight it, underline, write your questions down, start submitting your questions now, because I will ask your questions in our conversation. I think that's key. I think it's important for people to have a voice so that they can get into the mind of Candace when it comes down to this book. So again, impress yourself by reading her book and then coming to the table so that we can talk about it. Candace.
Yes.
Again, thank you.
As always. This is so awesome. Like I just love how our minds like connect the way that they do. It's so awesome. Very cool.
Oh, one more thing I need to say.
Yes.
We're not going to release every episode. It's going to be a caveat to that. We're not going to release every episode. So if you don't have your copy and you're not producing proof of purchase, and I'm just going to be honest, because I don't want to undermine her talent. I think that's important to say. Like she it's a book. We'll go out there and buy all kind of other stuff, right? And again, if we will play it by her, because it's your book, we'll play it by your call. But I don't believe that we should just give away the details behind your book for those who don't have the book. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I think that's important. So again, if you tell me otherwise, then by all means, we'll give it away. I'm 6 in one hand, half a dozen the other. But I'm partial to you because, like you said, it's your baby.
Yes.
So yes, I think that's important as well. Going back to what I was saying, you're right. Like the way we connect is like almost scary sometimes, right? But it goes back to what we talked about previously, how energy flows, right? When you have that, when you're on that same frequency, you'll be surprised how ideas just flow back and forth. So I was over here using Jedi mind tricks on Candace. Listen, Candace, thank you for your time today. Again, I look forward to our next conversation. In fact, I'm looking forward to every last one of them from henceforth. That being said, man, just have a great rest of the month. You know what I'm saying? Make this month amazing. This is the best month of your life. And next month will be the best month, by the way, as well. Just want to make sure I say that.
Right. But, and every month going for it, right?
Absolutely.
You can say, hey, it's summertime. If you can kick back, hang out by a pool somewhere, enjoy yourself. This is also the time for you to, rejuvenate too.
Absolutely.
You know?
And it's hot.
Drink so much time giving this energy out. We got to replenish some of it too.
Absolutely. So. And it's hot. Drink water.
Yes.
Listen, Candace, we love you. Have a great day. And I will talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks. You guys have a good one.